Welcome to the Awakening podcast, where we have truth tellers, not whistleblowers, where we have facts and not conspiracy theories, the podcast with solutions. Today, my guest, I could say supermodel, definitely a model, actor, director, producer. You've all known him from producing Pandemic 1 and Indoctrination, Pandemic 2. Please welcome Mikki Willis.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So the first thing is that I'd like to say is what I've seen is you with your children, with the homelessness. That was beautiful. You may just tell us a bit about that.
You're talking about the video that we did working with homeless people on the streets? With
yes,
the little ones?
You had your child and you were talking to
Yeah, that was a few years ago. So one of the ways that my wife and I like to teach our children is by direct experience. And so it's one thing to just walk by the homeless and give them $1, and it's another thing to go and hang out with them and understand what got them there. And so it was something I did with my kids when they were little. I really wanted them to understand how privileged they were, how lucky they were that they had a roof over their head, and that not everyone has it that way. And so we would go down and befriend homeless people and get to know them and find out what got them there and what they were about. And it was really quite amazing. We ended up doing a big walk to raise money for the homeless population in our area. And it was really wonderful because the kids, they were just starting to get to a point of becoming materialistic where everything they saw they wanted, which is kind of normal for kids. And but after hanging out with people who really had nothing except for maybe a tent and a sleeping bag and didn't know where their next meal was coming from, it really changed them as little people. And they started to show more gratitude for the things they have and stopped wanting so much for the things they didn't need. So that's the way my wife and I teach is we'll take the kids right in the middle of life, because I think that a lot of the parenting techniques over the past few decades have been destructive in many ways. They in the guise of conscious parenting, we have a generation of young people that are not prepared for the real world. And so for us, it's really important that they are engaged in the real world and they know what's really going on out there, the dangers and the beauties.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And I even saw your child like hugging, the home, and it's like it's showing humanity instead of them and us. And I thought it was beautiful. It was one of the, of all the stuff that you've done, that was something that touched me. Like it was really
wonderful. Thank you.
So, I mean, everybody knows about the, Pandemic 1 and 2, but you've been doing a lot of stuff before that. So, like, what I'd like to know is, when was your awakening?
Yeah, well, that's pretty easy one to pinpoint. There were two major events in my life, actually three, but two that were kind of an amalgamation into one. And that is when I was in my early 20s, my brother died of AIDS, and 23 days later, my mom died of cancer. They actually died of bad treatments, bad medical treatments, bad medicine. And so that was the first real awakening that I had into the issues within Western medicine. And then my next awakening happened while I was in New York in 2001. I was there when the World Trade Center was attacked and ended up going down to the scene and doing search and rescue and body recovery for 3 days. And as you can imagine, saw a lot of things that would change just about anyone. And so I came out of that with a new appreciation for the fragility of life, the impermanence of life. And really it kind of rocked my own ego, because we think we're these incredibly indestructible, powerful things. And we put so much importance on cars and buildings. And there I was standing at on the rubble of two of the largest buildings in our nation and in the world, and watching the finest automobiles be demolished to make way for rescue vehicles. And so everything in my mind that I thought was important suddenly got recalibrated, and I was left with the question, what is important? And the answer for me was each other, family, people, connections. The very thing that we're constantly being driven apart and divided I think is the most important thing. We came here to experience each other and to reconnect with our own humanity, which is why there's so much effort to divide us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's a very losing your mother and your brother within such a short period. I mean, so you've seen. I mean, I expose a lot of the medical industry, and I personally have experienced it myself. So, what exactly could you tell us a bit more about that? Where you realized what went wrong?
Well, it wasn't until years later. Well, during the incident, I was told by friends of my brother's that he was not killed by the virus, but he was killed by the medicine. And I remember names like Anthony Fauci, because Anthony Fauci was at the helm of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And I remember that name, but back then we didn't have the internet, any ways to really research. And, we weren't raised with a lot of money, so we didn't have the resources to pursue anything. So I just let it go. And then years later, I started to look into, as I started to do my own work in media and work with a lot of top doctors, and they would talk about cancer treatments and what was really killing a majority of the patients and the problems with things like chemotherapy and Western medicine's tendency to just want to cut and burn things. And so that started to make me kind of rethink my mom's death. And I thought, yeah, she went through all of that. And it's really interesting that she was so healthy one day and then suddenly was on her deathbed the next day. And I started realizing, that she too didn't die from the cancer, but from bad medical advice and treatments. And, I'm not the only one where most of us have experienced something to this degree, a loss of a loved one. And considering that medical error is the number 3 killer of the human body. The very thing that's, was invented to save us is actually, the number 3 killer. I think it leaves room for us to investigate that deeper and to really look at why that is. And we know why it is. Anyone who's done any investigating to understand the way that the medical industry has been hijacked by greed and by those wishing, seeking patents and fame and all the riches that come with discovering medicines and or monopolizing a market such that everyone has to take only your patented medicine. That's incentivized corruption and has destroyed the very industry that was put in place to help us.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there's a lot of people that I've on as well, and they're doing the natural remedies, and they're all being shadow banned. Their sites, sometimes they have 40,000 followers, and they're just removed. And it must infuriate you when you see something like that to be happening.
Well, it really does. There was a time when I'm a very observant person. I've been observant since I was a child. My mom used to drop me off at the local mall with my friends, and I would often break away from the arcade and just go kind of sit by the fountain and watch people or strike up a conversation with some old person. And I really enjoyed hearing stories from the wisdom of the elders. And so I've kind of continued that into my adult life of just really being observant of what's going on. And one thing that I've always observed that hasn't been able to register with me until recently is some of the illogical policies that get passed on. For example, when we invented the ability to catch rain and turn that into drinking water and usable water, why did some states within my nation make that illegal or restrict how much rain people could catch? Like I looked at that and I thought, I can't find any logical reason that they would restrict us catching something that falls from the heavens. And if there's such a, they keep talking about this issue with water shortage and conserving water, why wouldn't they incentivize all of us to catch the rain and solve that issue overnight? I couldn't understand that. And, through the years, I began to understand as I got involved in politics, and particularly with this lockdown situation, as soon as, there were independent companies, businesses that wanted to reopen, what did the local governments do? The local states, they said, we'll turn off your water and power. And so then it hit me that, it's about dependency. They want us all to be dependent upon their system because then they can control us. If we're sovereign and we're generating our own power and our water, and we're living off the grid, then they can't control us. And it's one of the reasons they want to tax the wealthy that bring jobs and that create financial independence for others, and the wealthy that have the ability to actually do something through the courts because they have enough money to combat the elite powers. They want to tax all of them and bring them down to a point such that no one has enough power to actually resist their agenda. That's what's really going on.
Exactly. And they've also, I've seen in some states, in some countries, where they made it illegal to feed the homeless.
Yeah.
And yeah, just looking at that, and like, because that's something that's passionate to me. I mean, I've seen it in Ireland because they were basically evicting a load of people. And if you trace it back, all the homelessness is caused by the governments. They basically, they're throwing people out, and it's costing, if you say the taxpayer, 100,000 plus, when they could have somebody housed for maybe 5,000 a year or 10,000. And it's like, have compassion. So if you give somebody even a room, I'm not saying giving them a house, even a room, but they're doing totally the opposite. They're just throwing people out there, taking their dignity from them, which then makes them depressed and go onto all the drugs and everything. So once you wake up to see this thing, you kind of go, what is going on?
Yeah, it's very clear. I think the clearest, most recent example that we all should pay very close attention to is the fact that our pandemic response team, this collection of what we were told are the top medical professionals in the world that were assembled to inform the global population while in lockdown, while they have everyone's attention, captive attention, of how to best respond to this virus. Yet not one person from the pandemic response team said anything about the importance of building our natural immune system. They actually gave us a protocol that destroys our immune system by staying inside, away from sunlight, toxifying our environment by spraying chemicals. Every time we touch a surface, spray it, just keep the chemicals in the air. All of this is the exact opposite of, immunology 101, ways to build our immune system. So I think that in itself, imagine you being the person who has been given the noble honor of addressing the world to save lives, and you have the microphone and the camera, and you go out to speak to the world, and you say nothing about the importance of eating right, exercising, sunlight, nature, everything, oxygen, everything that we need. We've been told to do the opposite. And so if that doesn't sound off some alarm bells for the general population to understand that something is not right here, if they're still listening to these people at this point, then you deserve what you get.
Exactly. And I'm not sure if you're aware, both in Ireland and the UK, just this week, they basically, like Tesco, which would be a big shop, big kind of similar to Walmart, to be one of the bigger ones, they've stopped all the clothes. You cannot, it's all closed off. And they even have the police guarding it. They're saying it's non-essential. So yes, you can go in and buy alcohol, you can buy all these toxic sweets and gunk that they sell, but yet they've stopped, especially with the winter coming in. Maybe they want people to be cold and get more flus, which they're, causing, saying that it's the COVID. So it's unbelievable.
Causing it's to cause more sickness for sure, which is why they push the mask mandates so much, knowing that people don't know how to wear them, knowing that they're recycling mold because the masks get damp inside, and we don't know how to tend to them. We don't know when to change them, and we keep touching them, and it just adds to more problems. This has been scientifically proven now. But above and beyond that, I think the agenda there is to create a powder keg situation, to create people so on the edge, so frustrated, because when the people are given orders, but they're smart enough to see beyond them, and they know that there's no logic here. We're all joking right now, but what's underneath that those jokes is rage. We're all joking about, oh yeah, great, I can put my mask on, walk from the door to my table in a restaurant, and then I can take it off. So somehow that 10 feet from the door to here makes a difference. If I want to get up and go to the bathroom, I put it on again. I can sit in an airplane right next to someone pinned against my shoulder, and I can put on a mask forces my breath to go to the side instead of forward. Like none of it makes sense. So those of us that still have the ability to think logically, we get frustrated. Yeah. And it's seeming more and more that the agenda is to get everyone in this breaking point of so furious because we're being pushed to do things that don't make sense, that they can then manufacture a civil war. That's what it's appearing to be on the top of the list right now.
No, and if you can see it, I mean, like the police are no longer like the police; they're the military now. You can see all the equipment, and they've got the sound equipment as well with the 5G, that the frequency waves that they can disperse crowds. So it's scary.
Yeah.
So, like, you've got into the political scene at one stage. I'm not, like, I've seen some stuff. Was it that you were kind of going around doing documentaries in the political side?
Yeah, my first real experience in the world of politics was traveling with Bernie Sanders in 2016. So I documented his campaign from California all the way to Philadelphia. And it was a daily thing, multiple stops a day, where we were able to sit down with different communities, find out what they needed, what they were about. And I was interviewing people along the way. And through that experience, I realized that there was a real common thread in a lot of the Bernie supporters. I was a Bernie supporter at the time. And the way that he sucked me in was through that part of me that identified as a victim. And we have to be really careful of these characters that are using that oppression and victimization to suck us in, because it's usually a very deep-rooted issue for people. When they were raised, I was raised on welfare with a single mother, and so when someone comes along and says they're going to help the little guy, unconsciously I'm thinking, wow, this is my way to help my struggling mom that was taking care of 4 kids on her own. Even though she's dead now, it's like I want to help rebuild America such that other moms and children don't have to experience the poverty that me and my brothers and sisters experienced when we were young. And so it pulls you in. But then what you don't realize is, because your victim mentality has been activated, that there's also a very disempowering part of that keeps that cycle alive. Suddenly it attracts all these victims, and all they do is, as I heard somebody call it one day, I thought it was very funny. They said it's the oppression Olympics. Everyone's competing to be the most oppressed. And that's what I started to understand when I was on the road with Bernie Sanders, was that everyone was sad. Everyone was angry. Everyone was, and it wasn't all there's a good reason to be sad and angry in this world. Many of us have, and people have good reason for that. But a lot of the reasons that they were expressing also didn't make logical sense to me. I would see people driving $80,000, Lexus cars, talking about how oppressed they were, and clearly, coming from money. And then when I'd ask what job they do, and they're a doctor or something, it's like, how are you oppressed? I don't understand. It sounds like America's been really good to you. It's given you a lot of great opportunities. You're an immigrant, and you came here, and you're from a family of doctors, and I think that there's a real danger in us focusing so much on what we don't have and losing sight of what we do have. And so I started to see this, particularly in the young people, who we started having conversations about socialism, as I was trying to understand what the hell democratic socialism really was. And no one could give me a straight answer, a good answer. And the conversation would then often bridge into communism. And I was shocked to hear how many young people had a favorable opinion of communism. And I listened to them because I thought, maybe maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe there is a brand of communism that hasn't been tried and that hasn't worked, and that could be a model. I mean, I have to get out of my mind is so wired to hear the word communism as bad. Maybe I need to open my mind and listen. So I did. And all I heard was, a lot of rhetoric that made no sense, that clearly would lead us to a place of devastation. And then I began interviewing people from Venezuela and Cuba and North Korea, and different communist nations, and to really find out, what those systems were like to experience. And I became really clear that what Bernie Sanders was peddling was incredibly dangerous to the future of our nation. Demonizing the successful, demonizing the rich. The godmother of my children is one of the most generous, kind ladies you'll ever meet. And she would be an enemy to Bernie Sanders because she's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. As a single mother, she invented a protein bar, a diet food, and sold her company. She did it, as a single mom. And so does this woman who was studying nutrition to make her kids' lives better and suddenly stumbled upon a nutrition invention that made her wealthy, does that suddenly make her a bad person? And I think that's the kind of thought patterns that the lack of nuance doesn't allow us to activate when we lump all of rich people into an elite pile or a greedy pile, and we don't understand that we need to incentivize our rich instead of demonize them. We need to incentivize them to understand that they have more potential to do good stuff in the world, and the more good stuff they do in the world, I think the more they should receive tax breaks and incentive to be incentivized to do more good in the world. I think it's just the opposite. So anyway, I fell out of love with Bernie and came off the tour. I went back on the road with Tulsi Gabbard, presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Loved her family, have nothing negative to say about them whatsoever. Don't agree with all of her policies, and she knows that because I was very vocal with her. But it's not because I think that in any way she lacks integrity. I just think that it's hard even for politicians to understand what's real and what's truthful out there. And so other than that, she was a great person, but I got to learn a lot while I was on the road with her, backstage with Biden and Kamala and all of them, and really to, again, observe, watch. And what I saw was a lot of charlatans, a lot of phoniness. And I know this out of 30 some years in Hollywood, and having taught acting for a number of years. I know when someone's telling the truth and when someone's acting. And I saw a lot of actors backstage, not good ones either.
And it seems to be not just in America, it seems to be, international. They all do the same thing. They kind of play, they play at the nerve where they know that people are suffering and they start saying that's what they're going to do. And once they get elected, nothing happens. And it must have been a shock as well when you see kind of Bernie, like, I don't know how it works in America, like it gets down to the last two and then he starts endorsing, say, like Hillary Clinton. When you see him endorsing someone that was their enemy for so long, I find that very strange. Is that?
Oh, it's incredible. And shame on me because I was warned, I was told that Bernie would do that. I had friends that called me, actually a couple of friends from Vermont who live in Bernie's hometown. And they said, we've known of Bernie and have been to many events for years, 30 years. And let me tell you what he's going to do. And when they told me that he was going to go all in for Hillary Clinton, I literally thought they were insane. I said, righteously, I said, I'm on the road with him. You're not. I'm getting to know him. And I would bet anything that there's no way that man would do that because he's the opposite of Hillary Clinton. There's no way he's going to cave in and endorse this woman. She's the epitome of corporate greed and treasonous policies that have been very detrimental to our nation. And as much as I would love to see a woman in the Oval Office someday within my lifetime, that's not the one. And lo and behold, in Philadelphia, when he cashed it all in for Hillary, there were a lot of us that were in denial. A lot of the Bernie bros, as they called us, were in denial, and we wanted to just believe that he had to do it. There were all kinds of rumors. He had a little scratch on his face. God, it looks like maybe someone roughed him up. Maybe he was threatened. His family was threatened. Who knows? The Clintons. And so I thought maybe that happened to him, and let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And then he just continued to, as months went on, he continued to go deeper into supporting her policies, backing a lot of the lies, the stuff that anyone in the press and anyone that knew anything about anything knew that the Russiagate thing was a complete hoax from the beginning. And Bernie's pushing it hard, and there's just one thing after the next. He signs a pledge of loyalty to the DNC and to never what was the promise? It was like to never say anything bad, basically, against Hillary Clinton again. Is basically he signed some kind of declaration, you know, and just one thing after the next, where I just went, wow, I was terribly wrong about this man. He's a Trojan horse to usher in the furthest left, country destroying, communist / socialist policies is what he's really about. So for those out there who may have been introduced to Bernie through me and my media, I'm sorry.
But like, I mean, it happens all around the world. Everybody, they're seeing on the news 24/7, and you know, because they're professional actors. I mean, what they're saying, you buy into it. If you start watching these things, people start, you know, and then they start getting aggressive and basically fighting their friends and family because they're on the wrong side. And I think that's what they want, divide and conquer. You know, they don't want people to come together and just kind of push the whole system out and try to create something better. You know?
Without doubt. Yeah. Without doubt. It really is, because, you know, there's some old statements that have survived the test of time. You know, the truth shall set us free, and united we stand, divided we fall. All these great catchphrases, you know, and they know that united we stand, divided we fall. And it's the reason that, you know, my brother who died of AIDS was gay. And so I was born around a gay community. To me, it was just normal. I just kind of grew up with, you know, all of that was normal to me. And I had a very great experience with my brother's gay community. I never had an issue. I never had anything but respect and a lot of very kind. My brother was much older than I was. A lot of uncles, a lot of very kind men that were that really looked out for me. So I had a great experience of my brother's community that he was involved in, and it was easy to support them. It was like, it's the gay community. And then it was the gay and lesbian community. Oh, okay, the women want a different brand. That's weird. They could just be gay too, but they want to be, okay, they're lesbians. That's fine. Gay community, bisexual. Well, that makes sense, because, you know, some people are both. Okay, you know, then it's gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, all of these. And then I realized years on, I went, oh, this is by design, because now they're all fighting each other. All the feminists from first wave, second wave, third wave, they're all upset, and they're upset, a lot of them, with the transgender, you know, community for ruining, you know, female sports, and you know, in the same way that Black people are against each other because some have light skin and some are darker skinned and some have accents and some don't, and they all infight. It's like the more we continue to adapt to these labels, to place these labels on each other, and to constantly call out our differences and dwell upon and obsess upon our differences, the more we can chop and slice and dice us into all these little subcategories. And then we're weak, because now we're divided and we're fighting each other. And that is by design. And so we have to get wiser than that and realize that, you know, how about we just come back and meet in a place called human?
Exactly. And like what I've discovered lately, and it was both Ireland, I think it's happening in the States as well, and in Germany, they're basically teaching children. So they have the new education system, and I'm talking about kindergarten 2 to 4, where they're talking about sex and masturbation and everything. So they're creating confusion in the children at that age.
Oh, I know. This is what my next movie is about. We're going to stop the indoctrination of our children worldwide.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Yeah.
So like, everybody knows about the indoctrination, and we can touch on that, but you've obviously done a lot before that, and people mightn't be aware. So I'd like you to maybe tell us which ones you've done and which ones were passionate to you, which were close to the heart.
Well, we've done hundreds of productions at this point, and a lot of it's short form. We saw years ago, kind of before the trend happened, that everything, that there are some people that just really have a passion to create movies, kind of a nostalgic entertainment value. But for me, it's always been a form of activism. It's using media to reach the people and to inform us of the things that is being hidden from us. And so we adapted the short form media quite a few years ago. So a lot of the stuff we've done, we've had a lot of viral short videos out in the world, too many to name really. And we've also done several full length documentaries that are out there. I was involved in one that was just released, was one of the key editors on a project called Kiss the Ground, which is about our soil and regenerative farming and soil. And I did a film called Neurons to Nirvana, which was working with 40 top scientists and doctors who wanted to bring back psychedelic medicines for therapeutic purposes, because before they were prohibited, they were achieving results in their sessions that they can't achieve without it. And so a lot of doctors had been complaining that there are certain medicines that come from the ground, psilocybin and certain even MDMA, and medicines that were designed to help people come back into a place of wholeness. And so we made a film called Neurons to Nirvana, which was helping people see, take these out of the recreational realm and understand that these are medicines that were literally designed. People use them for recreational purposes, but they were designed to help people through psychotherapy and to help couples heal. And so that's one of the films that I'm proud of, because it's done a lot of good for people, and it's out there. But other than that, there's some films on our website, elevate.us, that people can go there and check out and see some of our montages of our work and our reels, and some of the trailers of the films that are on there. I was involved in a film a couple of years ago called Weed the People with Ricky Lake, and that's a film that was helping kids with cancer by using cannabis oil. So we do a lot of stuff like that, helping, medicine related, but nature based, helping people come back into the thing that we've been severed from, which is the intelligence of our planet that provides just about everything we need to heal and survive and thrive.
And like even with the plant-based, once you've got like a proper shaman with, say, like the ayahuasca or even just breath work, when you see somebody going through a transition that they could have been not just abused, but they could have experienced something, they might have witnessed something, and they can trace it back by just going through an experience, their life can change in one session. And yet this is being quashed, and they're pumping children with Ritalin and Prozac. That's right. And it is sick to see.
That's right. Well, ayahuasca was one of the 5 medicines featured in Neurons to Nirvana. And that is, again, one of those medicines that when people do it, this is a root and a vine from the Amazon jungle. And it's not fun. It's not recreational. It's not a party drug. It is a ceremonial experience that clears everything out of the body that doesn't belong. And I watched hundreds of people that had some form of addiction. I watched their addictions drop 6 hours later. Like after the ceremony's over, they have just no need for whatever it was that they were addicted to before, whether it be alcohol or opioids or whatever it might be. And so because of that, again, we touch into this with pandemic indoctrination, that anything that can't be patented, they demonize. And so we've done a lot of focusing on the things that can't be patented, because we need to bring those back and make them available to the people again, because the people are suffering.
Yeah, and like that's something that, because I had wanted to guess, we were looking at the patents and everything, and basically during the Nuremberg trials and everything, most of the real Nazis, there was no criminals. A lot of them went to America and they started running pharmaceutical companies and everything. Yeah, that's right. And it's sick when you trace it back. And then people now, even today, are going, I trust the government, I trust the medical industry. It's like this, I run the opposite direction, because it's the one place that that's the real mafia is working there.
Well, on that note, I've had several people that I know, some of them friends for 20, 25 years, who had written me or had written bad things about me after pandemic online. And I reached out to them, kind of shocked, like, you didn't call me, you didn't check in with me to ask any questions. You just decided to go out and blast me online, and we've been friends for 20 years. What's that about? And they would tell me, well, I just read all this harmful, alarming critiques of your movie. Have you seen it? No, I'm not going to see it because it's deadly and it's dangerous. And I said, well, you might want to try seeing it before you carry on these catchphrases, pinned by big media. And they'll say, but it's just, you're going to kill people. You're going to kill old people. You're going to kill, repeating all this stuff. Right. And I would say, do you trust big pharma? Well, of course not. Do you trust the media? No. Do you trust me? Well, I always have. Have I ever given you a reason not to trust me? Have I ever lied? Is there anything I've told you that's been inaccurate? No. Think about the logic in that. So the two entities that you don't trust, big pharma and big media, you're now trusting over me that you've just admitted that for 25 years or whatever it is, I've never steered you wrong. Isn't that interesting? Like maybe there's some self-examination that needs to happen there, because something has gotten into your mind that is allowing you to separate yourself from a friend that you know, love, and trust, and take the side of the two major entities that are destroying our planet and our way of life. Something's wrong. We all need to take a look at that.
I love that. And I know a lot of people will actually listen to that and get a smile, because even when you done the first one, I know I shared it, loads of people shared it. We were just delighted that something was done. And then, of course, we have the fact checkers coming out, and then everybody then is attacking you. And it was because, we know, the medical industry. So it didn't matter what someone said. We just know. But, when they were going after the character of Judy, then because I didn't know the person, but I still knew what the information. And then when you done the second one, it was so beautiful because you had the solicitors coming out and, basically just proving every single, we know I do, and you do know the fact checkers are fake and they've been bought and they're told what to do. But unfortunately, maybe 90% of the population, I don't know, when they see something like that, they actually think, ooh, they're correct and you're wrong. So it must have been sweet. I mean, you really ring-fenced it. I'd like to maybe you to delve into that a bit more, because you're going to be attacked. So you have to really, probably 10 times more than anything else, ring fence what you're putting out there.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't allow anything in the film. We had some really great sections that I even went to the depth of finishing as an edit, where they're ready to show right now. But when we got to the end and we realized that a lot of stuff with Bill Gates has just been scrubbed off the internet, and there were several things that he's done that he's involved in. For instance, there was a dating app, eugenics-based dating app that he was developing with Jeffrey Epstein, and that was through Harvard or MIT, through Harvard, and we know it's real. And we talked with people who knew about it. They know that Bill Gates invested in it, and that it was selective breeding. It was trying to match people with their DNA. And basically they're saying, if we match people with good DNA, we can root out all the illness in the world. And let people know that, this is probably not a good match for you, this person, because they have a history of cancer in their family or whatever. We can start to selectively put, these premium people together with good DNA. This is what they were building. But they scrubbed everything, and because it hadn't hit the public yet, there was really no official documentation to be able to show. And so I just said, unfortunately, we have to cut it out of the movie. I'm not going to put anything in there that we can't show absolute proof that it exists and that what we're saying is accurate. And that drove the press crazy, because they wanted so bad to debunk the movie. But that's why as soon as we mentioned something in the film, we would show the document and highlight it right in front of people so they could see, like, we're going to save you time. We know you're too lazy to go research it yourself, so we're just going to put it right here in the movie for you. And not one claim from indoctrination has been debunked. Not one.
Brilliant. And you know, you're on about like the eugenics there and the DNA. Like with the testing, people getting their COVID tests, there's even laws now that are slipping into different countries. They're basically retaining people's DNA. So that's why they're ramming it into the back of your nose to get the DNA from people, and they're keeping. And yet people still queue up in their cars and they're kind of quite content to do this. They don't realize the dangers of the information that they're handing over.
Oh, it's crazy. And then now you have New Zealand that have actually created these camps where if you refuse to get tested, they're putting you in a camp and holding you there until you agree to get tested.
They're
And
actually
until you,
creating
and
that.
and
I think in Canada as well. There's
Canada and
basically
Canada as well.
everywhere. I call them concentration camps again.
Yeah,
That's what's
right.
happening.
Yeah. So to all the people out there, you know, I've done a great deal of apologizing to those communities that we call conspiracy theorists, because I've been so allergic to conspiracy theory for years that I just got to a point, and that's by design too. You just get to a point where you hear anything that is in that realm, you know, of you hear, oh, they have direct energy weapons that can shoot a laser down and start a fire, and maybe they're starting the fires in California. And you just go, ah, please. And you lump that in there with flat earthers and moon landing deniers and all of that. And then you go, oh, they actually do have direct energy weapons that can shoot a laser down and start a fire. So if they have that, would they do that? Wow, maybe we should open our eyes and consider that now that we've seen what they're willing to do, creating concentration camps. I think they would do just about anything. And so I have made a lot of public apologies to the conspiracy theorists out there that tried to wake me up 10, 12 years ago. And I laughed them off. And one by one, just everything they told me was coming has come. And so shame on me for not listening. And if any of your listeners out there are still not listening, come on, it's time that we all listen and we understand. But there's a fine line on that also. I also like to talk to the conspiracy theorist and say, I was having this talk with a guy the other day that was a fan of the pandemic series, but was also saying, you know, stuff to the degree of oh, you know, that last Obama appearance, that was a clone, that wasn't a real person, and it went on this whole thing. And I said, well, yeah, they have the technology of it, deep fakes and all of that, but be careful with that kind of language, because you make it really hard for guys like me. Because when you go out and you say stuff like that, it's not provable, and it's very likely not accurate. Then you talk about pandemic in the same sentence. You're lumping me in with all that other stuff. And I said, please don't do that. It's not helping. It really isn't. So you need to stay grounded and don't just pass on things, and listen to yourself, listen to the language. And every word we speak should be a bridge. And if you consider that every word you speak is building a bridge. Because if you want to just preach to the choir all day long, all that does is create more division, right? That your team just agrees and you stay in that conversation, and this team disagrees and they stay in their conversation. But to build a bridge between the two groups, we have to be aware of our language. We have to be responsible for the words that we speak, so we can build a bridge to the other side and have them join us, you know, or join them, if that makes sense. And stay unified. But it's our language that sometimes is the great divider.
No, absolutely. And like with the kind of the hiding the information, because I had written a book. I wrote it about 3 years ago, but I got it into the hands of maybe 20 kind of influential people, and they all said, "Ooh, you're going to be whacked for this." And I really didn't care. I said, "No, I need to get this out." And it was more, my mother was kind of talking, "What about your children?" You know, and that was kind of the factor. But I saw in the last 6 months, yeah, people have woke up a lot, and you probably have seen that yourself. And all the information I have in my book, because I had a lot of links and everything, it's all gone. Everything is disappearing. All the good information is gone. And lots of people, you know, medical doctors, anyone doing natural health, it's all been taken away. And I mean, you're obviously experiencing a lot of that as well.
Oh yeah, Pandemic is the most viewed and banned piece of documentary footage of all time, with over 1 billion views. But honestly, that wouldn't have happened without the censorship. So I'm deeply grateful for the media and the fact checkers for doing such a wonderfully horrible job. at trying to stop us, because all it does is make people more curious and more vigilant. And it would not have been seen by over 1 billion people if they wouldn't have gone to such great lengths to silence us. Everyone that I've seen that, the truth always prevails. It always prevails. And those who speak the truth, even the ones who have been, incredibly condemned, ultimately it's just given them a larger voice, a larger bullhorn. I've watched YouTubers with 100,000 followers get deplatformed, and next thing I know, they're hosting a major broadcast for a major channel, and so this is all they're ultimately doing, is helping amplify us. And it's not working. It'll never work. Look what just happened with Hunter Biden's laptop stuff. They went to such great lengths to stop it. If they would have just let it go and die out there, it might have, but it's not going to die now, because now people are wondering, why in the hell are you trying to keep this from us? And they're digging and they're finding what they need. They're finding the answer to that. And so none of that works. It's there's a lot to be said for being integral and being honest. There's a lot to be said for that. There's, the forces of nature line up to support us. And the reason we're watching everything backfire for 4 years now on the side that's trying to lie and deceive is because they're not being honest. And if they, and it's like, that's my former party. I am officially, I will never vote Democrat ever again in my life. And that's all I've ever voted. I'm absolutely clear now that the party has been incredibly infiltrated and hijacked with destructive and deadly ideologies. And having been born and raised in California and watching the result of bad political policies, watching Gavin Newsom do the most incredible, lockdowns, just announcing that no one can celebrate Thanksgiving or Christmas or, Halloween or any of these holidays for, no science. Here's a guy who's been saying all along, listen to the CDC. And then the moment the CDC came out and said, well, we were wrong, here are the real numbers, it's not as deadly, and masks may be a problem, he said, I'm not listening to the CDC anymore, I have other sources. And it's like, you don't get to play that game just because you're an elected official. You don't get to play with our lives that way. And so it's been a real wake-up call to a lot of us to go, this is why we need to really pay attention to who we're voting locally. And for my Democratic friends who still, and some of them are still so caught up in the game that they don't understand that Biden has sold out to China. He's done treasonous acts. I mean, he's admitted it on camera. We should not care at this point what side it falls on. We should be making the highest choices for our future, no matter what. If the Republicans screw up and they're dishonest or whatever, call them out, take them down. And if it's the Democrats, whatever it is, we have to remember we are the party of the people. And these parties serve us. And the moment they stop serving us, we need to take charge. And right now, the Democratic Party is not serving us. It's serving an agenda that is destroying lives and destroying our economy. And it's all to get Donald Trump out of office. And that's all they're doing. And you can support that endeavor all you want, but there are ways to do it legitimately. And because they've been doing it in ways that are not legitimate, everything has backfired. And all they're doing, again, like I said a minute ago, they're giving Donald Trump a bigger voice, greater support, a stronger base. And they just keep doing it. They did it with Hillary Clinton in 2016, and they just keep doing it over and over and over. And so if the definition of insanity is repeating the same behavior and expecting different results, they deserve, they deserve the headline at the top of the dictionary representing insanity as a Democratic Party at this point.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. And like if I look up Wikipedia about yourself, it's like there was a time, I mean, you're going back, you're saying that in 2016 you didn't realize about Bernie Sanders and all this. There was a time I actually trusted Wikipedia, and then I started looking at different things. I don't know, have you even looked? It's just pure.
Oh yeah.
And you cannot go in and modify about you. It's just it's like bad boy. It's unbelievable.
Well, they don't like me because I called them out, and I pulled back the curtain in indoctrination too. Yeah, I mean, in pandemic too, and showed people what they really do. So I knew when I made that choice, all the choices I've made. That's why the people who have said, you know, they can't find any real dirt on me, and so they just go, oh, you're just doing this for fame and fortune or whatever. And it's like, I've turned down every opportunity to make money on this project. And fame is the last thing that I want right now. After 30 plus years in Hollywood, I think fame is a curse. It just makes you a target. I like my privacy. I like to spend time with my family. I'm not seeking any of that. They don't understand what comes with this. I had to make conscious choices as a filmmaker to know I'm a veteran. I understand what the repercussions are when you go up against Google, who owns YouTube and everything else. Yeah. Google, who has the power to do what they did, which is, they contact the other big tech, technocrats, and they tell them what to do. So Dropbox deleted all of our files, private files, password protected files. GoDaddy shut down our URL. All the payment service, providers shut us down. So when you go up against something like Google, you burn all your bridges. Netflix, I'll never have another film distributed on Netflix. Another movie that I was co-directing, they've just offered to pay me out, and so I could take my name off, because they don't think they can get distribution on Amazon or Netflix with my name on the film. And it's like, and that's fine with me. It actually really is, because I'm no longer dependent upon the system. We're building our own systems now. We're building a bulletproof blockchain platform that will be able to pull in all the top truth tellers together. We're building that now. We have ways to distribute these projects. If you consider that the most seen documentary before pandemic was just over 10 million views, and then Pandemic 1 does over 1 billion. And Pandemic 2 is way up there with 30 million plus at this point. And that's after 1 had come out, and after even the word pandemic you couldn't even send an email to each other with the word pandemic and it'd be rejected. And we still have over 30 million views. So it proves that you can't stop the truth. And there are ways to do it, especially when you do it with people-powered distribution platforms. And so the way that we achieved it is we kind of reverse engineered everything that the marketeers have been teaching us for decades. And instead of trying to capture emails or turning on your ads for revenue or anything like that, we said, no, we want the people to upload it, and we want them to have it. And a lot of people that reached out to me, they said, can we translate this into Portuguese? And I said, you don't understand, it's your film. The moment you download it, it's yours. And we had Roku and all these companies that called us and wanted, distribution meetings about distribution. And we said, no, we won't sign one deal. We won't take one penny, but you can have it. And they're like, what do you mean we can have it? Well, it's free. It's your movie. The moment you download it, it's yours. And they're like, well, I think we need to be in some kind of contractual agreement. We won't do it. Not one contractual agreement. We won't do it. It's yours. So take it if you want it. Leave it if you don't. It's fine. And that kind of energy, not even capturing an email, not making people put in an email to be able to see the movie. It's just there, download it, it's yours, it's free. It had people take ownership. And so then when it was censored, they took it personally, because it wasn't me being censored, it was them being censored. And that really woke up people to the dangers of limiting free speech and the dangers of tech censorship. And so, we're really glad that it woke up millions of people to understand that can't happen, and we can't allow that.
And that's beautiful. And I put it on my BitChute channel, because I see even with the YouTube channel, there's times the numbers, I can see the views going in, but when you look at the about page, they've stopped, and there's a few other people as well. I've even have screenshots where my numbers are going backwards. I don't know how. The same with Facebook, because they'll even if, say, you have 10 thumbs up, you could have 8 views. Normally that's even impossible. Right. And it's just constant stuff like that. So we're surrounded. But I love what you've done, because you said 1 billion people. That's incredible. And you could have made a fortune on this, but it just shows the passion that you have. to get the message out, because I think it's more about, further down, you're a family man, you want to protect your children, and the more people that understand this, and that it's not about a personal greed thing, it's beautiful, to be honest with you. And like, I definitely, if you have not watched it, you need to watch it, because I mean, you're starring in it yourself, but the questions, they're just perfect the way that you've done it. You really, you have a great skill for documentary, to be honest. It's fascinating the way that you've done it.
Thank you so much. And if people do want to see it, it's free, and it's at plandemicseries.com. Plandemicseries.com. Both 1 and 2 are on there, as well as a bunch of vignettes we took out of the film. So if you just want to watch the vignette about Bill Gates and learn about his true history, or the WHO, or the CDC, or how Western medicine became Western medicine, we have all these vignettes, and everything has been subtitled in 13 or 14 different languages. And so I welcome people to go, but don't just watch it, download it and save it, because if our site is to disappear one day, you'll have it, and share it, and stand in the fire with us. People will come out and say, oh, this is debunked and it's smeared and whatever, and just trust that none of that is true, and that history will remember you fondly for doing your best to share the truth, and that's all we can do right now.
No, exactly. And like, when you see the likes of, like, on Netflix, because I like to look at my enemy as well. I'll read, the Mein Kampf and stuff like that. I like to just try to get into the mind of different people. But there's like a documentary recently on Netflix about Bill. And if you watch it and believe it, you think he's the best man on earth. And I mean, like, coming from your experience, I don't know, would you waste your time watching that? But just assume you did. It must, or even looking at other ones, it must infuriate you to see what they're, spewing out, such lies to brainwash the population.
Oh, it's really incredible. Someone that, it is infuriating when you speak with people in Africa and India, and they were there 10 years ago, 18 years ago, and they saw tens of thousands of young children walk in and be carried out of bad vaccine trials at the hands of Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundations. And that those kids were discarded. They were never, Bill could have dropped $1 billion and helped an entire territory of India for the damage he did. But he didn't. And he instead left these kids to just be crippled or sterilized, whatever it may have been. And the fact that there's so much evidence of this, and there's so many people that will testify that this happened, yet, Netflix will go throw up a 2-hour documentary glorifying this man, a man who stole his original technology, didn't even invent it, a man who was convicted of antitrust violations by the US government. So here's a man that the US government already declared is not trustworthy.
And have you seen the video of him in court? He's like Rain Man bouncing back. You can see the guilt. Just watching that video alone will turn you against him.
Oh yeah, it's super clear. And here's a man who's invested in, it just blows my mind, Roy, because it's like, how much evidence do we need till we finally go, okay, there's something here to pay attention to. It's when someone is talking about, needing vaccines because he wants the world to be healthy, but then he's invested in Monsanto's and all of the most, the worst food companies on the planet, and all these technologies for surveillance that literally keep us in prisons, all these abilities to track us, to trace us, to punish us if we don't, adhere to the protocols of him, ultimately mandatory vaccines. Again, there's another conspiracy theory. I remember when I first made my first post 10 years ago about vaccines and mentioned something about, it's really clear that the agenda is right now, our children that are going to school. Then it will be children, whether they go to school or not, homeschooled or anything. And then it's going to be all people, adults. And when I said that, people online literally were like, you're nuts. You're crazy that you would think our government would mandate adults to get vaccinated. This is not ever going to happen. And now it's happening. and it's like, how many of these circumstances do we need to live until we go, all right, maybe these people running these benevolent branded NGOs with all their, money that they're going to save the world and innovate stuff, maybe they're up to something else. What might that be? And just ask that question and start looking yourself, because what you'll find is they're up to something. And it's not what you think it is right now. It's not what the media is telling you it is right now. And hopefully you'll see it before it's too late. Because in some cases, for some people, in some nations, it's already too late. But we still have a fighting chance here in our nation, where you are. Speaking of by the way, before I forget, one of my favorite doctors that I interviewed was Dolores Cahill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Have you interviewed her?
I think I will, because my friend is actually going to interview her next week. And
you should, from Ireland.
Exactly. No, and I've watched her when she was at the protest. She's brilliant. She gives the facts. She's got the experience. She worked for the Irish government. She worked for the EU, and nobody can put her in her place, because she knows exactly the facts. And
she was one of my favorites. I love her, and I'm your accent reminded me that I need to get a hold of her and stay in touch with her.
Yeah, I'll tell Chris to pass on the message and make sure.
Please do.
Yeah,
please do.
So listen, it's been fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. What's the best way for people to get in contact?
Plandemicseries.com. There's an email on there too if somebody wants to reach out. We're just now gearing up for our next movie, which is tentatively entitled American Family, because we're going to American Family. So it's about being American and being family, not necessarily the American family, but both of those as separate subjects. And the importance of family is something that we need to come back into, because the family, and not just America, but all over the world, has been decimated. And there's a reason for that too, because that is the foundation of our existence in the 80 to 100 years that we get to experience this planet. The foundation itself is our family, and without a foundation, we're weak and we don't stand. And so because of that, we have groups like Black Lives Matter that has declared on their website that they are disrupting the nuclear family. And we need to start listening to what they're saying out loud, right in plain open sight, and understand that they mean it. They actually mean that. They mean they're going to disrupt the family, and there's a reason for that. They're saying it's because it's based on the patriarchy and all of that. But the truth is like the same reason that, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, that I was raised on welfare. I watched my mom be incentivized to not get into another relationship, to not get remarried. She was incentivized through the welfare program to stay single. So I was raised without a father, and I'm one of the lucky ones. But it almost went awry. In my teens, it's amazing that I didn't end up in prison or dead, because without that, that input of a solid father, I had to go out and learn everything the hard way. And I got into a lot of trouble. And thank God something straightened me out enough that I could come back to center and start over again. But not everyone gets that second chance. And that is, again, by design, by keeping the fathers out of the home. A young child, a boy, is 9 times more likely to end up dead or in prison. 7 times more likely to commit violent crimes and rape, and like 5 times more likely to get divorced. It just really it starts us off on the wrong foot. It's not that we can't have a great life if we're raised without a father. So I don't want people to feel hopeless that don't have, didn't have, or currently don't have access to a father. But it's definitely something that we can all band together and recreate in the future, such that our children are raised with the input of both mother and father, which are critical to our developing minds and hearts.
No, definitely. And like I've actually witnessed that in with friends. Like I've got equal custody of my son, but I'm in a strange situation where we both respect each other. We get on very well. We even do a Polish podcast together. But I have seen other people in courts where their rights, they're lucky to get a couple of hours a week to see their child. And it's like all orchestrated. And that's not just in Poland and Ireland, that's around the world. And what you have
Yes,
just said makes sense. It's intentional. It's like everything is intentional, and people need to wake up and go, ooh, this isn't a coincidence.
that's right. Well said.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful. Really appreciate you. And I
Thank you.
encourage people to go and watch the documentaries, and we look forward to the new ones that you're creating.
Roy, thank you so much, my friend. This has been a pleasure.
So that's all for the Awakening Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. Until next week, take care.